in-depth knowledge of power purchase agreements.
Let me quote you. You said, it's beyond our scope. Did you recall saying that?
Beyond our scope?
Yes, I mean, we can ask the Sergeant at Arms to maybe, or to replay if you would like to see that what you stated is there's no in-depth analysis and that it's beyond your scope. It's beyond our scope.
I don't recall saying beyond our scope. I think it was I was stating that it's a very technical agreement and that requires, involvement of CUC and detailed examination.
So in a way you were generalizing that we cannot really assert the intent of this so-called PPA at this point. We need further analysis. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with the statement that detailed analysis was required, further detailed analysis was required.
And did you share that with, as the legal counsel for the governor, did you share that with him?
I direct that to the Attorney General and Gil Burnbridge.
No, with the governor, as the legal counsel for the governor. Did you have an opportunity to share that information that you provided to the Attorney General, that we need further analysis, Mr. Governor? You did not.
I gave that to Ed Buckingham.
And did you ask Mr. Ed Buckingham and Gil to provide your further rough analysis, that we need further analysis? Please provide that also to the governor.
No, I did not say that.
Did you believe who, or do you know who were involved in the formulation of a PPA? Any PPA?
CUC and CUC initially in most PPAs. The PPA for SDL, I'm not sure who was the originator of that.
But you had an inkling that the so-called PPA that you just looked at involved somebody.
Involved somebody?
Yeah, correct?
I don't know who directed it.
So you looked at this so-called PPA in front of you, that you have limited role, and that these are very technical examination. It requires very, very technical examination. So I'm providing this feedback to Gil and or Mr. Buckingham, and that you're suggesting that they get CUC on board to further look into the PPA. Is that correct?
Correct.
And your involvement, at least on the first part of looking at a document relative to the PPA Sdllc is in June.
I believe so, that's correct.
July, did you get involved in July?
As I stated, it was, I believe, one meeting, and I believe, looking at these dates, it was late June.
And did you suggest the 71 issue to the Attorney General to also further look into those 71 issue that you looked at?
Yes.
That you were recommending that it needs further examination?
Well, there were 71 things that I noted that, that required, examination.
Yeah, you were kind of putting notes on the side.
Right.
And there were about 71.
According to this note, yeah.
According to those notes, there were 71 of them.
That's correct.
How long were you able to look at the 71 issues that you make note of?
How long did it take me to do that?
Yes, sir.
I think in a day.
In a day. So are you suggesting that just the term, I just looked at it and then I gave it to them, that one day is very limited?
Well, I wouldn't characterize my legal review like that. I would say I looked at the document. There were 71 or some issues, I don't know the exact number, that I thought would require a little further examination.
You need full examination.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a total examination.
Well, I think that, when you're in here, as I stated, a power purchase agreement is a long-term agreement. You need to carefully examine the full scope and impact.
So on top of the current proposed PPA that you were looking at, and as the legal counsel for the governor, what you guessed were all speculative?
I don't understand your
Did
question.
you say that the proposal that you are looking requiring other technical experts to be involved, such as CUC, are all speculative?
I wouldn't use, I still don't understand your question, you're
That
saying
they're not clear yet.
on the current PPA I'm looking at?
Yes.
The current PPA I'm looking at is complete, we've been working on this for several weeks.
So you have only one current PPA.
That's correct.
But the other one is this
The
Sdllc.
prior one for SDLC?
Yeah, you didn't have time to look at it because you're limited.
Yeah, I only the one review.
You didn't have time to look at it in July.
It's not that I didn't have time.
They did not allow you, or you didn't
I
have
had
access to that.
very limited, my role and it was very limited. So I looked at it, I provided their comments. The current PPA I'm working at on solar is more in-depth and I have more responsibility on that.
Thereafter, you did not know what transpired after your June involvement?
No. I wasn't really part of the process.
You didn't bump into the Attorney General's or Ed to say, hey, what about the 71 issues? You're done with it? You're okay with it?
No, I wouldn't characterize it as that.
No, you didn't have opportunity to even
I
bring
wasn't
that up
part
as
of the
an issue.
process, yeah.
But you are the special projects legal counsel for the administration or for the governor, 702 projects.
702 projects, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Stump.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Guerrero. Hi, Mr. Stump. How are
Hello,
you?
good morning.
Explain to me, firstly, what is your role with the governor's office?
Well, I'm a governor's special legal counsel. I do projects that require particular additional resources on, or am I also I work on particular projects of importance to the office of the governor.
Okay. What would you say are the parameters of power that the governor has based upon the emergency declaration and the executive order?
Well, the emergent.
In other words, what are his scope of powers based upon those two documents?
On the PPA and on which two documents? I'm sorry.
Under the emergency declaration and executive order.
The Constitution gives the governor broad authority to take actions he deems necessary to protect public health and safety, so he has broad authority.
Would you say that the governor would have the legal authority to sign the contract with Saipan Development LLC?
That question, I've not reviewed that question. I would have to really take a look at that, and that question would be, I think, was addressed by the Attorney General when he reviewed and participated in that contract.
Well, apparently we're not able to ask the Attorney General, but roughly. Do we have somebody from the Attorney General's office that is coming in today?
I believe the Burnbrick and Patel.
Oh, all right. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Adi. That's for now. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stump.
Thank you. Any other members? Mr. Stump, I have a question. Were you asked to take the lead to have a full economic analysis done on the power purchase agreement?
Yes.
Can you tell us what has transpired since you were asked to take the lead?
We made inquiries and met with economist.com to determine the necessary scope, and we received quotes for that services for the scope that was identified. They gave us a quote of $50,000 to do the analysis. It was felt that fee was too high in light of the extensive work that economist.com and the familiarity of that company with the financial structure of CUC. It should be noted, we looked at their, within the last year alone, within the current year, they've done over $250,000 worth of analysis of CUC, and we felt that they had already done a preliminary analysis according to them, and then they wanted $50,000 more just to do the full analysis. $50,000, it was at least the opinion of the executive office that the cost should be somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000, and therefore we weren't content with that. $50,000 is equal to the income of 3 households of the CNMI for an entire year, and just felt that a $50,000 charge was inappropriate. Based on that, we're going out for RFP to have for benchmarking, not benchmarking, for to do economic analysis for a CUC. The current contract with economist.com is a sole source time and material contract, which are very dangerous contracts to get involved in because of the unlimited costs that can be involved. So we are developing an RFP to have rate analysis and economic analysis done. We're hoping to have that out shortly. The further examination specifically on the contract is currently, we feel, is currently prohibited by a temporary restraining order that's currently in place that prohibits any expenditure of public funds on the proposed power plant documents. So we're going out for an RFP for future rate analysis, and we will have the option to do we believe the new vendor could do that, or the selected vendor, but right now we believe the TRO prohibits further analysis or expenditure of public funds on that project.
Mr. Stump, let me get some clarifications on what you said. First, relative to your statements that the TRO prohibits us from expending public funds for power purchase, or for what?
For any analysis on that power plant agreement, that power plant documents, the Sdllc.
The current TRO prohibits the CNMI or prohibits CUC from having a economic analysis or rate analysis done relative to the Saipan development contract? Which one is it?
It prohibits expenditure of public funds on any furtherance of that document.
So how can you issue an RFP for a rate analysis or an economic analysis if public funds are prohibited?
The RFP is for, economist.com is retained as to provide rate analysis. It's a general service, goods and services. That's what we're going out for. Within that general services, they can perform specialized tasks that are identified. That's what was proposed for economist.com to do initially, what they returned the quote of $50,000.
But the current RFP will be a rate and economic analysis on, you said, future rates?
Yeah, the CUC has an ongoing, they retain the services of economist.com to do rate analysis on an ongoing basis, and the work with Sdllc or whatever is just one part of that, a subgrouping of that contract.
So this RFP is not necessarily intended to review the Sdllc contract
Right.
on whether regarding the rates or regarding how it may impact
Right. It would
CUC.
be, it would be an assignment within that larger contract.
You also said the executive office determined. Can you be more specific? Who, executive office at CUC, or who is the executive office?
The governor and lieutenant governor.
The administration.
That's correct. They weren't pleased with the $50,000 quote. They did not think it was appropriate.
So if this contract materializes for a rate analysis and an economic analysis, it would be looking at the larger scheme of things, what CUC's rates may be, ought to be, based on current circumstances, and not necessarily a review of this contract, or it's going to be a component of this contract. Is that correct?
Yes, it's, the economists look at the total rate, the total cost structure of the utility, and the different factors that make up, the power, oil, lube, labor, that make up the final component of the rate. And really, the whole issue here is what is, when you're looking at any new power plant agreement, how does that fit in with the existing cost structure of the utility, and what's its direct impact on the rate? So, they all fit together. So when you want to do economic analysis of a proposed agreement, you put it through and look at its actual impact on the rate structure.
And just to clarify, the $50,000 cost is what economist.com wanted to charge CUC for a review of the Sdllc contract provisions, the rates, determination of rates, and how this contract would impact CUC. That's what the $50,000 was for.
That's correct.
Now we're hearing that we're not going to go with a review of the Sdllc. We're going to issue an RFP for something much lower, I guess, less intensive, and to answer questions that CUC in its does on a regular or annual basis. CUC requires these types of studies to be done. Is that correct?
Yes, it's part of the rate-making process, and appearance before and processes before the Public Utilities Commission. We're not proposing any less of a review, if we can do it, any lesser review of the proposed power plant agreement. It would be the same standard that we were requesting, but we think that it can be done at a lesser cost.
But in this case, the Saipan Development Power Purchase Agreement review is secondary. Is that a fair statement? You just mentioned that the intent of this analysis is to review, everything, cost structure, the current CUC how
I wouldn't call it secondary. I would say that, it's an important issue. It's critical to understanding the full impact of any agreement. We want to see what its cost is. I don't say it's secondary, but it's a part of a larger process that we're trying to do. Because the governor's office and lieutenant governor are both concerned about expending so much funds on economic analysis. As I stated, $255,000 just in this current year so far has been spent. $215,000 was spent last year. That's a lot of money, for economic analysis. And so,
Thank you. We understand, but this is separate. What CUC has incurred in this year relative to their own process of what they need to determine in terms of the rates is something that perhaps CUC is required to do based on PUC's requirements. So, but I think the need for a full-scale economic impact analysis has been reiterated over and over by yourself in your recommendation, in your report, by CUC in their recommendation to the AG's office, by the Lieutenant Governor after he learned of this contract, and by the public and by this body. We all want to know what would be the impact to determine if in fact this project is in the best interest of the CNMI and CUC and its ratepayers. So now I understand there will be no full and detailed economic and rate impact of Saipan Development LLC. Just something as a part of another rate study.
No, that's not correct.
Well, then please correct me.
There will be an economic analysis of it. We're moving ahead on it. We're putting together an RFP. We hope to have that out shortly. One of the tasks of that new, whoever is awarded that RFP will be a detailed economic analysis.
And who will be paying for this?
It will be CUC.
And will CUC's recommendations be taking into consideration relevant to the concerns that they have raised regarding this project in this study?
The structure for an economic analysis will look at all factors that impact the grades. That's correct.
Thank you. Members? Representative De La Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Stump, earlier the chairman asked whether you were asked to perform an economic analysis, and you answered in the affirmative. Is that correct?
Yes.
Who asked you to do this economic analysis? Was it the governor? Was it the lieutenant governor? Was it CUC?
I believe the governor and lieutenant governor.
So both it was the governor and lieutenant governor.
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that this economic analysis should have been done prior to the signing of this PPA rather than later after it was signed?
I really couldn't answer that. I've been tasked to do it now currently, and
But on your personal and professional opinion, would you think that such an analysis should have been done?
well, I don't know that one hasn't been done. I mean, I think that indications are from Mr. Fletcher himself that it would save at least 3 cents on the current rate. So, and that's some, I think that was the driving force behind the whole agreement, that that it would be a savings. I'm not privy to that analysis, though.
You stated that based on Mr. Fletcher, he stated that this would have saved, 3 cents from the current
That's
rate?
it. That was the comments Mr. Fletcher made to me. That's correct.
Members, can I make a interject for a moment? I just want to remind members of our time. It is about 11:15 now, and we have 2 more witnesses before 1 o'clock scheduled hearing. So can we kind of move it forward and entertain the other witnesses?
Okay. Mr. Stump, going back to the request that was made by, you said it, the governor and the lieutenant governor. When was that request made to you?
I don't have the exact date, but it was. I don't have the exact date.
Would you say it was after the signing of the PPA?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Stump.
Members, I will entertain one last question. Representative Sablon.
Thank you, Chairman. Mrs. Tom earlier asked you whether you did any in-depth or preliminary review on the Sapper Development PPA and how it would affect proposed renewable projects. On August 8th, Mr. Fletcher emailed to you, and I read the second line of the email. It says, "We need to close the loop on the renewable projects. However, the recent PPA for the 15 megawatt plan may have an effect on integrating future renewable loads." And he closed, "Let me know when we can discuss these and other topics." Were there any discussions between you and Mr. Fletcher subsequent to this email on the 8th of August?
Concerning renewable energy?
And integrating it into the system, knowing that a PPA for 50 megawatt power plant had been executed?
Our discussions were specifically towards the renewable energy projects and the status of those projects with the current RFPs. And we're having ongoing discussions concerning those renewable energy projects.
You said ongoing discussions. Right now it's October and this was dated August 8th. Has there been, in any of those discussions, has there been any consensus in your discussion between yourself and Mr. Fletcher or anyone at CUC on how the Sapper Development PPA would affect current attempt to incorporate renewable power loads?
The only discussions were that the amount of renewable energy has to be in the part of the total power provided to Saipan, and that the solar energy should probably be kept around 10 megawatts, and that further examination has to be done on geothermal and possibly waste energy, and that has to be compatible with any power plant agreement. But there hasn't been any specific discussions on total allocation.
So, with the PPA being for a 50 megawatt plant right now, CUC is generating 30 because of low demands, and the renewable discussion is the goal is 10 megawatt.
Well, when you say 10 megawatt for solar, that's the total capacity that is capable, but solar really only produces a very limited amount, even though it has 10 megawatts, because it only can produce during the day and when there's sunshine. So it's really only like 6% of the total capacity. So solar really is very limited. So although we talk about 10 megawatts, it's really, the actual output is very, very low because of limits of daylight hours and cloud cover.
So in summary, the Saipan Development PPA doesn't have any negative impact on the proposed renewable?
I would say that we're continuing to move ahead with the renewable, the solar, we really hope that geothermal has a significant potential, and feasibility of waste energy. I mean, we're all moving ahead on all three of those areas.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stump.
You're welcome.
Before I dismiss you, Mr. Stump, Mr. Representative Sablan referred you to a memo dated, I think, August 8, and the question that Mr. Fletcher, or rather statement that he made to you, was in reference to closing the loop on renewable energy projects. Mr. Stump, can I ask you, what was your understanding of that statement? What does closing the loop mean?
Well, because these renewable energy projects were put out many, many months ago, and the RFPs were proposed months ago, and at that time when they were put out, they were also put out with proposed power purchase agreements. In our reviewing those, we weren't satisfied with the proposed structure of those agreements, and in one, the geothermal, really called for the developer to have first claim on much of the mineral resources of the Commonwealth, and we felt that those were inappropriate agreements. And so when his reference to closing the loop, I take that as we canceled the current RFPs for the geothermal and solar 2 and the waste to energy, and we're going to reissue those, some of those, and we're just going to develop the 10 megawatt solar. So that's how I take it as closing the loop, is we've got to make decisions on these current alternative energies, and we did that, and we've canceled those RFPs except for the solar, and now we're restructuring them, I think, to be more beneficial and consistent with our statement always that these are complex PPAs, and that we really have to be balanced with the total energy needs of the community long term, and that's really what we're doing on the current proposals, renewable energy.
Thank you, Mr. Stump. Just one final question.
Okay.
Mr. Stump, you are the governor's legal counsel. You understand that declarations of emergency declarations were made by the governor. You understand that a sole source contract was issued for this project, 50 megawatt diesel plant. In your professional opinion, as an attorney and as the governor's legal counsel, do you feel that the emergency declaration justified the need for a 50 megawatt diesel power plant?
Well, Mr. Chairman, as I stated, my role in the governor's office is on specific projects. I was not tasked with the development of that emergency agreement, nor was I tasked with reviewing the legal capacity as to that agreement. That was done by the Attorney General's office, and I think it would be inappropriate for me to really make that.
I was merely asking you, as the governor's legal counsel, would you have advised him against a sole source contract if you felt that it was not justified based on the emergency declarations?
I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to, speculate an answer on that.
So you never did offer
No.
advise the governor?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stump. With that, we will move on to the next witness. Mr. Stump, we thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you, members, Mr. Chairman.
And have a pleasant day.
Okay.
Sergeant at Arms, would you kindly call in Ms. Patel, please?